Today, we are going to learn how to write formulas. Before writing the formulas, we have to know a few definitions. So let's proceed. Ions. Ions are electrically charged particles. So there are two types of ions. One is cations and the other one is anions. Cations. Cations are positively charged ions. They are atoms or groups of atoms that have more proton than electrons as they have lost one or more electrons. Example, sodium loses one electron to become Na plus. Anions. Anions are negatively charged ions. They are atoms or group of atoms that have more electrons than protons as they have gained one or more electron. Example, fluorine, that is F, gains one electron and becomes F minus. Now let us look at some of the cations and its charge or formula. So the cations which are monovalent, which has 1 plus charge, are the following: cesium, that is Cs positive, gold, aurum, Au positive, hydrogen, H plus, lead, Pb plus, lithium, Li plus, potassium, K plus, silver, Ag plus, sodium, Na plus, copper 1, Cu plus. Now 2 plus charge: barium, Ba2 plus, beryllium, Be2 plus, cadmium, Cd2 plus, calcium, Ca2 plus, cobalt 2, Co2 plus. Here remember, cobalt is written with the capital C and a small o. So that is difference between a cobalt and carbon monoxide. We write capital C and a small o. Copper 2, copper Cu2 plus, iron 2, Fe2 plus, lead 2, plumbum, that is Pb2 plus, magnesium, Mg2 plus, manganese 2, Mn2 plus, mercury 1, Hg2 plus, mercury 2, Hg2 plus, nickel 2, Ni2 plus, strontium, Sr2 plus, zinc, Zn2 plus, tin 2, that is Sn2 plus. Now let's move on to cation with 3 plus charge and 4 plus charge. Aluminium Al3 plus, chromium 3 Cr3 plus, cobalt 3 Co3 plus, gold 3 aurum Au3 plus, iron 3 Fe3 plus, manganese 3 Mn3 plus. Now 4 plus charge: tin 4, that is Sn4 plus, nickel 4 Ni4 plus, lead 4 Pb4 plus. Now we'll move down to polyatomic ions. A polyatomic ion is a covalently bonded group of atoms with a positive or negative charge. They seem to behave as a single unit. Now let's see the name and formula of some polyatomic ions and anions. Acetate C2H3O2 minus. That means they all have a one negative charge. Amide NH negative. Hydrogen carbonate, or we can also call it bicarbonate, HCO3 minus. Hydrogen sulfate, or we can also call it as bisulfate, HSO4 minus. Bisulfide, HS minus. Bisulfite, FITE, HSO3 minus. Bromate, BRO3 minus. Bromide, Br minus. Chlorate, ClO3 minus. Chloride, ClO2 minus. Chloride, Cl minus. Cyanide, capital C, capital N minus. Cyanate, OCN minus. Fluoride, F minus. Hydride, H minus. Hydroxide, OH minus. Hypochlorite, ClO minus. Iodate, IO3 minus. Iodide, I minus. Nitrate, NO3 minus. Nitrite, NO2 minus. Perchlorate, ClO4 minus. Permanganate, MnO4 minus. Thiocyanate, SCN minus. So these are some example of polyatomic ions. Now let's move on to polyatomic ions with 2 minus charge. Those were one negative charge or one minus charge. Now two minus charge. Name: carbonate CO3 2 minus, chromate CrO4 2 minus, dichromate Cr2O7 2 minus, oxide O2 minus, oxalate C2O4 2 minus, silicate SiO3 2 minus, sulfate SO4 2 minus, sulfide S2 minus, sulfite SO3 2 minus, tartrate C4H4O6 2 minus, tetraborate B4O7 2 minus, thiosulfate S2O3 2 minus. Now, polyatomic ions and anions with three negative charge: arsenate AsO4 3 minus, arsenite AsO3 3 minus, citrite or citrate C6H5O7 3 minus, ferricyanide Fe open a bracket Cn close a bracket 6 3 minus, nitride N3 minus, phosphate PO4 3 minus, phosphite PO3 3 minus, phosphide P3. Now there is one positive polyatomic ion, and that is known as ammonium, and it will be NH4 plus charge. So remember that. Let's move on and do some example. So then you will understand how to write down the formulas of different ions or formulas of different compounds using the ions. So the first one, let us first write down the name of the uh, compound. So let's start with aluminium, AluMinium, aluminium oxide, Oxide. Now, the first thing that we have to do is to write the correct symbols. So, aluminium is Al3 plus, and oxide is O2 minus. Now, once you have written down the correct symbol and the correct charges on the ions, if you're not sure, you can go back to the charges and see the charges in the list. But it's good if you learn them gradually. If you keep on writing them, it will stay in your mind. But it's important that you start learning them one by one. So let's write down the formula. How do we write down the overall formula? So Al3 plus, if we look at it, it will be this side, and oxygen with a charge of 2 minus will be written like this. So we write it down as Al. Now oxygen charge will come beside Al, so Al2, and the 3 plus of aluminium will go to oxygen. So that will be Al2O3. So very important is that we write the correct symbol and the correct charges on the ions. Let's do another example. Now this example is of sodium hydroxide. So SODIUM, sodium hydro, HYDROXIDE. Now let's write the correct symbol. Sodium has a symbol of Na and a charge of plus. Hydroxide has a symbol of OH and a charge of minus. Now let's write down, we can just make two arrows like that, showing us that the charges go to the opposite elements or ions. So Na will be minus charge, so Na, and hydroxide will be, sorry, Na will be, yeah, one charge from hydroxide, and hydroxide will get one charge from sodium. So they are both 1 1. So we don't have to write down the charge, we just write it as NaOH. So that's the formula of sodium hydroxide. Let's move to the third one, magnesium chloride. So MAGNESIUM, magnesium chloride, CHLORIDE. So let's write the correct symbol, Mg, and chlorine is Cl minus, chloride in fact. So Mg has a charge of 2 plus. So let's exchange the charges to the opposite element. So Mg has a 2 plus charge, it will go to chloride. Chloride has a negative charge, so we don't write anything beside magnesium. So MgCl2. This 2 beside the chlorine comes from the charge of magnesium. Let's do another example. Number 4, potassium, Potassium, potassium oxide, Oxide. So the symbol of potassium, that is kalium, will be K, and the charge is plus, and oxygen is O2 minus. So let's exchange the charges to the opposite elements. So it will be K2. 2 charge of oxygen will come to potassium, and potassium has a positive charge, so we don't have to write it, just write K2O. So there we have potassium oxide. Let's move on to some more example. Example number 6, that is ammonium sulfate, AMMONIUM. Ammonium sulfate, SULFATE. So ammonium is NH4, charge of plus, and sulfate is SO4, 2 minus. Now they exchange the charges. We show it with the help of arrow, and ammonium is NH4. Now remember, the charge of sulfate will come to ammonium, so NH4. Now here we have to remember to put it as in a bracket. When we put it in a bracket, that means nitrogen and hydrogen with 4 over there is included in it. So it will be 2, that is ammonium, and the charge of sulfate, and sulfate gets a charge of plus, so it will be SO4. So NH4 whole 2 SO4. So that's how we write it down. So remember how to write it down. Then we moved on to 7th example. Let's write calcium hydroxide, CALCIUM, calcium hydroxide, HYDROXIDE, calcium hydroxide. So symbol is Ca, charge is 2 plus for calcium, and hydroxide symbol is OH, and the charge is negative. Let's exchange the charges. So calcium will be Ca, and since hydroxide has a negative, we don't write anything. Hydroxide will get a OH, whole OH. Why? Because this charge, the 2 will be for oxygen and hydrogen both. So if we don't write the bracket, it seems that it is only for hydrogen. So it's not like that. It's both. The 2 is for both oxygen and hydrogen. So that's how we write it down. Let's move to another example. Example number 8, that is ammonium nitrate. So AMMONIUM, ammonium nitrate, NITRATE. So ammonium, let's write the symbol and charge, NH4 plus, and nitrate will be NO3 minus. They'll exchange the charges, and this will become NH4. So the minus is, we don't have to put anything, and plus also we don't have to. So NH4 NO3. So that's how we write it down, NH4 NO3. Let's do another one, copper 2 sulfate. So remember to write in the bracket 2, COPPER, copper 2 sulfate, because we also have copper 1 sulfate. So copper 2, SULFATE. So copper 2 plus, so it has a charge of 2 plus over there, and sulfate has a charge of 2 minus. They exchange their charges. So since both have the same charge, we can just write it as CuSO4. So that is copper 2 sulfate. Let's do one more example before we end this practice of writing the formula of the ionic compounds. So let's this 10 number example. So aluminum sulfate. So ALUMINIUM, aluminum sulfate. Sulfate. Let's write the symbol and the charge. Aluminium has a symbol of Al with a charge of 3 plus. Sulfate has Sulfate is a polyatomic ion, so SO4, and the charge of 2 minus. Show the arrows of exchange of charges. So aluminium will be Al, and how much? Sulfate is 2, so Al2. And let's open a bracket because there are two elements, so SO4, and aluminium has a 3 plus charge, so it comes to sulfate, so Al2SO4 whole 3. So these are some examples of ionic compound. I hope you have understood it. Students, if you like the video, please subscribe and please like. Thank you.